Test 5, Part 2, Passage 1. Listen to a conversation between an art department employee and a student.
Hello, welcome to the art department. What can I do for you today?
Hi there. I'm enrolled in the art program here, and I have some concerns about a recent change in the department policy.
Sure, what seems to be the problem?
Well, as you know, the art department used to provide art supplies to students at local middle and high schools free of charge. Paints, brushes, pencils, paper, that sort of stuff. But starting this semester, funding for this program was cut off. The department isn't providing free supplies to them anymore.
It's really too bad, isn't it? The art department had to cut back on its community programs due to university-wide budget cuts. And, well, believe me, you aren't the first concerned student to ask me about it. Unfortunately, the issue is out of my hands. The department decided that it just doesn't have enough money to provide the students with materials.
I understand, but I really feel strongly about this program. You know, it's important that we encourage young students to explore their creative sides, and giving them free art supplies, well, it's a great way to help them develop artistically. I mean, we don't know which one of these children could turn out to be the next Picasso.
That's true. You never know.
Exactly. So I was talking about the effects of this budget cut with some of the other art majors, and we got to thinking, what if we could do something to raise public awareness about the necessity of art education? Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I was hoping to get your thoughts on ways we can show people how important it is to study art. And if we get enough community support, the art department might decide to fund the art supplies program again.
I think that's a great idea. What specifically do you have in mind?
Well, we're thinking of displaying our work at an exhibition. You know, the art students here have produced some very impressive work. We think that when people have the chance to see it, they'll realize the value of art education.
I see what you're getting at there. But why not go even further? I mean, have you thought about charging admission for the exhibition? It would be a great fundraising opportunity, and you could use the proceeds to buy art supplies for the students in the area.
I hadn't thought about that. Do you think people would really pay to attend a student art exhibition?
Why not? Most people don't mind paying a few dollars to check out an art show, especially when they know that the money is going towards a good cause. And while you're at it, you could try selling some of the artwork. Maybe hold an auction. It would be a great way to raise even more money.
It's definitely something to think about. I'll have to talk it over with some of the other students. Oh, and while I'm here, we had one more idea I'd like to talk to you about. We thought that providing free art lessons to local students could be another great way to promote art in our community and, really show people the importance of art education.
Oh, that sounds fun. I know a lot of people would jump at the chance for free art lessons.
Yeah, that's what we were thinking. Several students here at the university have already volunteered to give the lessons.
You know, free tutoring is a wonderful idea. When people sign their children up for lessons, be sure to let them know about the reason for the art supplies program and the funding problem. And, if you get lucky, they may be willing to make a donation.
That makes a lot of sense.
One thing I forgot to mention is that you'll need to arrange for a place to hold the exhibition on campus in advance. You should probably visit the administration office as soon as possible to get the necessary forms filled out.
I'll run this idea by the other art majors first and see what they think. Thanks a lot. You've given me some really useful advice today. Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer. 1. Why does the student go to the art department? Two. According to the woman, in what ways could an art exhibition be used to raise funds? 3. What advice does the woman give regarding art lessons? Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
The art department had to cut back on its community programs due to university-wide budget cuts. And, well, believe me, you aren't the first concerned student to ask me about it. Unfortunately, the issue is out of my hands. The department decided that it just doesn't have enough money to provide the students with materials.
4. What does the woman mean when she says this?
Unfortunately, the issue is out of my hands.
Five. What will the student probably do next?
Test 5, Part 2, Passage 2. Listen to a talk on ecology. The professor is discussing a research method.
Let me begin our discussion on a research method called mark and recapture, with a true story about a mother whale and her calf. Sometime in 1935, they were sighted near a shoreline by some fishermen who proceeded to harpoon the calf and then shoot both the mother and calf with a rifle. For 6 hours, the mother stayed beside her calf, and when it died, she swam away. There was a photographer nearby, and he took pictures of what was happening. Then, about 24 years later, 2 oceanographers took some video footage of a group of whales, and they recognized the mother. She was spotted again about 5 years later with a young whale, and then again in 1995 with a wound on her head, probably from colliding with a ship. Isn't it amazing? I mean, that we're able to identify whales and, well, somewhat trace their life histories. This is possible through photo identification, which is a technique utilized in mark and recapture. So what is mark and recapture? Well, it's a research method used to determine the population of a large aggregate of creatures and to determine survival and growth rates and migration patterns as well. Also, to identify the physical and biological factors that could affect how a particular species is distributed geographically. Now, if you're estimating the population of a particular type of whale, obviously you're not going to be able to just stay in one spot and count off the whales as they cross the Atlantic Ocean. Months might go by before you even see one. You need to use a method like mark and recapture. In the past, researchers used to literally mark an animal, like with some kind of band or tag, to identify it. Today, most researchers take pictures instead. Think about that. To most of us, whales look pretty much the same, right? But they're not. They have acquired markings, usually scars from shark attacks or ship encounters. They also have natural markings. For example, humpback whales have a sort of black and white pattern on the underside of their tail. Or there might be variations in the appearance of certain organs. For instance, whales all have a tail with 2 lobes called flukes. Well, just as people have their own fingerprints that are unique to them, each whale has its own fluke shape. It's genetic. The humpback's flukes are so distinctive that it's possible to identify individual humpbacks in photographs from their flukes alone. Now, markings and other identifying features don't always stay the same. The callosities, those are calluses, rough patches of skin, on a right whale might be obscured if cyamids cover it. By the way, cyamids are little parasitic bugs that live on an animal's body and suck its blood. And of course, depending on the position, movement and surroundings of the whale, marking patterns may appear to change. The way the sun shines on the whale's body, or if the whale makes a sudden move and splashes water, these things can alter how a pattern appears. So a researcher might misinterpret the markings. They try to avoid this, though, by recording and carefully examining the spatial relationships of the various markings. So, for the actual photo identification, basically, a researcher will do it in one of two ways. He will capture a group of whales, take pictures of them, release them, and then allow them to redistribute themselves. When another group of whales visits the same spot, and I mean whales of the same species, he recaptures them and takes pictures again. By comparing these photos with the earlier ones, researchers can calculate the number of whales that were previously marked and how many weren't marked, and use those numbers in a mathematical formula to make an estimate of the local population of that species. The other way to perform mark and recapture is, it's actually the same thing, except that the second set of pictures is taken in another spot, so a different formula is used to estimate the population. For the first method I mentioned, let's say you marked 10 whales the first time, and then in the second set of another 10 whales, you found only 2 that you had previously marked. Your proportion is 2/10, or 0.2. Then you plug it into a formula. Here, let me write it down on the board. T equals M1 over P2. So T here is the total whale population, your M1 is the number of whales marked the first time, and your P2 is the proportion of marked whales that were observed the second time. That proportion is 0.2 as we calculated earlier, so let's stick that in here. And our M1 is 10. So, using this formula, you can calculate that the whale population is 50. Of course, there are assumptions that need to be made. Assumptions like none of the whales will have died in the meantime, or none of them migrated to a different area. Well, this is a rather simplistic formula. There's a more complex formula used by scientists, and you can check it out in your textbook. What's important is that it's a method that works well when counting every individual isn't realistic. And it doesn't disturb the social organization of the whales, nor does it harm them in some way, which is a big plus, considering we want to protect the whale population.
Now get ready to answer the questions. You may use your notes to help you answer. 6. What does a professor mainly discuss? Listen again to part of the lecture, then answer the question.
Now, if you're estimating the population of a particular type of whale, obviously you're not going to be able to just stay in one spot and count off the whales as they cross the Atlantic Ocean. Months might go by before you even see one.
7. Why does a professor say this?
Months might go by before you even see one.
8. According to the lecture, what are 2 factors that can influence how a marking on a whale is seen by a researcher? 9. According to the professor, what differentiates the two mark and recapture methods that utilize photo identification? Ten. What does a professor say about using a mathematical formula to estimate population size? Listen again to part of the lecture. Then answer the question.
What's important is that it's a method that works well when counting every individual isn't realistic. And it doesn't disturb the social organization of the whales, nor does it harm them in some way, which is a big plus, considering we want to protect the whale population.
11. What does a professor imply when he says this?
Which is a big plus,